So, welcome along to our Key Stage 2 writing workshop. We wanted to give you an overview as parents as to how we teach writing at Whitegate End, the types of activities your children will be doing whilst they're doing their writing at school, and any questions you might want to ask them at home about the learning, just to spark up a conversation really, rather than what have you done at school today? Oh, nothing. So we hope you get some really good tips. Like I say, any questions, please feel free to ask them as we go along, and we'll get going. Now, before I can talk about writing at Whitegate End, I have to mention the importance of reading. Now, reading is learning, so if the children read as much as possible, it will help with their writing. So as they're reading, they'll be picking up ideas about characters, they'll be picking up vocabulary that different authors use, they'll be thinking of story structures, using their imagination, and just being transported to a different world, and it really helps with their creativity. So I can't stress enough the importance of reading and making time to read each and every day. Now, I know as a busy working parent myself that is easier said than done. It might just be 5 minutes before bedtime, just squeezing in that time where you do spend time with a book, that valuable time, that time together, enjoying reading. So I thought of handy tips to help with this. So making time to read every day is vital, but again, in a busy lives, I know this can be difficult. I tend to, when my little girls get out of the bath, we share a story then before bedtime. One idea that works well for older children is maybe you read a page and then they read a page, because we know from our children and lots of pupil voice that I've done that they see their time at school as their learning and home is separate to that. So it could just be that time together where you're sharing a book. Speaking of which, it doesn't necessarily have to be a book. If your child is interested in sports events, you could look on BBC News, you can look on different sports reports. It may be they go on Newsround and read news articles, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a physical book. There's just different ways they can apply their reading skills. I think finding something they like is absolutely key. So year 3 at the moment are reading The Firework Maker's Daughter by Philip Pullman. And some of the children on their library sessions have asked if the author's written any other books, and they've taken those away with them. So if there's a series that they like, I would encourage you not to always stick to the same author, so they've got a different variety of texts that they can look at. Making use of the local libraries. I visit Oldham Library with my little girl on Friday, and they're just great spaces, warm spaces. There's free tea and coffee there, and they're a really brilliant resource across the authority. I think one really good thing that I find is that when you've got your books from, say, Oldham Library near Sainsbury's in town, you can take them back to any library in Oldham, which is really handy. Mrs. Nicol has done a fantastic job of transforming our school library. So the children will bring home their library books each week. They have a slot in the library where they go, they put the text back that they've chosen, they can choose, it's completely their choice. You will notice as well in the entrance of school, we've got our Whitegate End book swap. So please feel free, if your child has a look, they find a book that they're interested in, please just take that. And there's just loads of really good text there. And it may be that your child might not necessarily realise they're learning if you use an app. So one app that I recommend is Teach Your Monster to Read. Again, I use this at home with my little girl, and she doesn't really realise that she's applying all of these reading skills. There is a cost involved. So I know with cost of living crisis, and I'm not saying you have to go out and purchase it, but it might be a handy resource that you use at home to see whether it helps and sparks an interest. So, how do we teach writing at Whitegate End? I wanted to give you an overview of what happens over the course of a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks, with your child's writing and how they pick up their skills for their writing. So, we give them a hook. This is where we're activating their knowledge. Now, you will hear me talking about activate, build, use, and review, which is the approach that we use for learning, at Whitegate End. So we're hooking them into their learning. Then we make sure that we show that there's an audience and a purpose for their writing. Then we look at a waggle, what a good one looks like. So then we're building up their knowledge of what they're working towards. We will then focus on their GPS, and that stands for grammar, punctuation, and spelling. And the teacher will choose 2 skills to look at for a piece of writing. So again, we're building their knowledge there. Then we practice that GPS within a shorter piece of writing. So the children are using their learning. From that, we'll plan a piece of writing based on the Waggle. Then we'll do a shared write, and we'll draft and edit our work, and then we publish. So what does each step look like? Because it's a lot to take in. So a hook then, a hook into the children's learning will get and keep the children interested in that piece of writing. So what might this look like? So year 4 at the moment are distraught because they think that the government is going to make them come into school on a Saturday. Now, Miss Ejaz has done a mock newspaper report and she showed this to the children and they were absolutely horrified, but that hooked them into their learning. They are interested, they are motivated. Year 6, they had a request from the Imperial War Museum that they were doing an exhibition on the Manchester Blitz. So it's something, it does what it says on the tin, it hooks them into their learning. So from that hook, we have to make sure that we give the children an audience and a purpose for their writing. Now, motivating the children to write is absolutely key. You may see this at home if you're encouraging them to do writing. They think, oh, what's the point in that? Why do we need to do that? So we're really pushing this in school and we make it real. Okay, we're giving them that real reason to write. So the year 5s, for example, at the moment are creating a story for year 1 children and they will publish their own book and they will go and read it to the year 1 children. So the year 1 children are their audience and they've got a clear purpose for that piece of writing. The year 4s are writing a letter to the DFE to give their views about the proposed plan to come to school on a Saturday. And again, the DFE is the audience and they've got a very clear purpose. Now, we've been accessing some local training recently and we're using what's called a raft, which I hope you can see the image there on screen. So we're giving them the reason that they're going to be writing, the audience, the features of that text and the tone, so whether it's formal or informal. And we're introducing that throughout the classes this half term, so you may hear the children talking about that. So a Waggle. So Waggle stands for what a good one looks like, okay? And the teachers either create these themselves or they may use examples from children that they've taught before. So for example, I had some really talented writers in year 6 a couple of years back, and I still use their examples today where I can, because if the children see that it's come from someone like themselves, they think, right, I can achieve this. So when we look at a Waggle, we look at the piece of writing so they know what they're working towards. So some of the vocabulary in there will be very ambitious, the sentence structure, but by looking at this, do children understand what features they've got to include, what parts of the writing, what sentence types, and they know that it's achievable then. And they actually start to think about what makes this a good piece of writing, and they can talk about it. They might do it in pairs, they might do this in groups or individuals, and then they can go back to this at any point during their writing. So I mentioned after the Waggle, we look at 2 skills of GPS. Now, GPS stands for grammar, punctuation, and spelling. Now, as teachers, we have to make sure that we know all the terminology and what this means and what this looks like. And I know as parents, it could be quite baffling. So I found a useful glossary that you might want to access as parents on the school run. Now I have on the slides, this here is a link to the question mark is a hyperlink to the website, but I am going to put it on the class pages as well, so you can access that at any time. So we pick 2 skills for each piece of writing, and we do this and we might recap on any prior learning as well. So it might be in year 5 that Miss Hargrave has identified a skill that they're going to look at, and the children will be taught, for example, how to do a noun phrase, how to use adjectives and add description to a sentence. They might look at different sentence types, so whether it's a simple sentence, a complex sentence, and again, all the terminology is online for you to have a look at. So they will choose 2 skills. So they will have a lesson on skill 1 and a lesson on skill 2. And then they will then put this together in a shorter piece of writing. So they're building the skills, but then they're seeing how can it help with their writing. So following that, They've looked at a waggle, they've looked at GPS skills, and now they're going to start and plan their writing. So they'll use ideas from the waggle, they'll use ideas from class discussion, which is brilliant. They also then might do some creative activities linked to having a debate, doing some drama, doing some research, which they can then use in their plan. And we make sure as well by adding any words and any captions that they're including their GPS learning. And we really make clear to the children that this is a work in progress. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to make improvements as you go along, because that's what happens in the real world of writing and authors putting their work together, because that's how we learn, and it's okay. So we've got this plan now, and we might have a class plan as well, and we then do a shared write. So this is where the teacher has looked at any assessments that they've done, and they model the writing to the children. And if you're in a classroom and this is happening, you might hear Mr. Scott, for example, talking through his ideas. So he's talking out loud, he's thinking out loud almost of his ideas for his writing. And he may change these as he goes along, because this is modeling to the children that that's okay, it's a work in progress. So it's an I do moment where the teacher is doing it. So then all of the children know that the learning's taking place in a safe space. All ideas matter in the classroom. We bounce ideas off each other using the plan. And then through partner work or individual work, the class then contribute to this shared write. So it's we do. We're all mucking in together to try and improve our writing and create a piece of writing. We can edit it and improve it as we go along, so we can have feedback from our friends, and it's building confidence. So there's children that have different confidence levels with their writing, are working together. They're thinking, oh, that's a really good idea. I can use this idea. They can share that with the class teacher. So we've got a waggle, and then we've got a shared piece of writing written by the teacher, which is like a scaffold, a help for the children to do their own piece of writing. So then we've got the shared write, and then the children actually have a go drafting their writing themselves. Now, this is almost as if they're putting all the pieces of the jigsaw together to create a piece of writing. So they're using their plan, they're using their GPS learning, they're using the waggle, they may have word banks that they've created as a class, and they've got feedback from the class teacher. So if when the children have done their plan, the teacher spots something that, oh, we could maybe include this, or why don't we include that? It all comes together to make a jigsaw, the final piece of writing. And again, we really stress that it's a work in progress, and it can be improved and built upon as the sessions go on. So when the children have completed their drafts, they then have an opportunity to edit it, to make it better, to make improvements. And this will be from feedback from their class teacher and also from their classmates as well. So our big focus in school is making sure we're using our grammar correctly in our writing, and the importance of punctuation and obviously our spellings. And the children do this in different ways. The teacher may group them together. If there's a group of children that have struggled on their sentence structure, they may work together to edit their work. It might be something to do with a particular spelling pattern. And they can edit their work using either green pens, or year fives, for example, use a small slip. They'll write the improved sentence over the top and glue it so it's like a flap, and they can lift it and see the improvement. And again, we make clear that it's a work in progress. It's okay to make improvements as you go along, because that's how we learn. Then the children publish their writing. So they've put all these pieces together, but it's not just, oh, I'm writing it up in neat. It is still a work in progress, and they can add in their improvements. Like I said before, it has a real purpose. So as an example is year fives are creating books for the year ones at the moment, and year fours will be writing a letter to the DFE. So they will publish it, they'll set it out as a letter. They may do it on the school letter-headed paper. So they publish it, and there is a real purpose, and we maintain that interest. So thinking about, if you now know what the writing process is at Whitegate End, we can thinking about how can you help at home. And again, as a busy working mum, I do appreciate how jam-packed those tea times can be and making time. So a couple of things that you could help at home is reading is absolutely key. Just like I said before, the children are picking up ideas, they see new words which they can include in their writing. And it's just that nice time together, to be honest. Opportunities for writing. I was thinking about the use of technology, so it could be that they write a little blog of what they've done over the weekend, but they could use an iPad or a tablet or a laptop. They might create a blog of their interests. So, for example, if they're into their football or particular games or particular hobbies outside of school, that could be included. Shopping lists is a good one. Thinking about especially our younger children in Key Stage 2, giving them an opportunity for writing, but actually as well seeing the importance of writing. So, for example, job applications, they may be done online, but it's still you're creating an impression of yourself for somebody, and it's really important for the future. So, we were thinking about how you could help at home, and we're really having a push on the statutory spellings for Key Stage 2. Now, copies of these are on your child's class page. So if you go on, for example, if your child's in year 3, if you go on their class page on the school website and scroll down to the bottom, I've added these onto each class page along with what I'm about to show you as well. So these statutory spellings are spellings that children should know by the end of the year group. So there is a list for year 3, 4 children and a list for year 5, 6 children. Now, I was trying to think of ideas that would help you at home, that are easy to resource, that might just take 10, 15 minutes that the children can do on their own. And we've been trialing these in year 3 and 4, and they've gone down really well. And some of you may have seen this resource before. So on the class pages, there is a spelling menu, and there's lots of different activities on this spelling menu that you could do with your child to help them with their spelling. So I've just picked out a few of them that you might want to use that are like easy to resource and the children can get on with them independently. And you will find that your child has a preference as to which activities they like, okay? So, for example, number 1 is ABC order. So they could pick 6 to 8 spellings off the list and write them in alphabetical order. And they could do that 3 or 4 times, thinking about committing them to their memory and understanding what the spellings are and what the words mean. Another popular one is number 6, which I've added on there, which is the pyramid words. So they build the words. So you start at the top and then you build the pyramid downwards. And they can make those into different shapes if they've liked. I've seen some really good rainbow ones of that one actually. Use of technology, so the children might not realise that they're doing their learning, so they could on a notes app or on a laptop type out the spellings, but you could do it different fonts, different sizes, and that might help. Or another one, which you can hear a pin drop in the classroom when you do this one because of the levels of concentration, is other-handed. So they have to write their spellings with their opposite hand. So if they're left-handed, they'd have to do it with the right hand and vice versa. And actually, they really have to concentrate when they're doing this. So there's a couple of activities that you might like to use, but there are lots on the spelling menu. And again, it's sitting down with your child, going through which one that they would feel is of interest to them, that they might like to use to practice. So I hope that we have covered everything. If you have got any questions or anything that we can do to help, our door is always open. So we've got 2 options. So if there's any questions, you might want to drop them into the chat, or alternatively, you could email them to info@whitegateend for the attention of myself, and then I can get back to you with any questions that you might have. One note to mention is that some children in school have a specific list of spellings that they are working on because we've identified that they need to learn their spellings in a particular way. So it may be that they are using the 3-4 list and the 5-6 list, or they may have certain words that they're working on because that's what suits them. So if you have any questions about that, please just pop in and see your class teacher or let me know. So that's the end of our Key Stage 2 writing workshop. I really hope that you've got information that's worthwhile, that will help you with your child's learning. And if there is anything that you would like to ask, please just pop it in the chat or, like I said, drop us an email. Many thanks for your time.